I now call the City Council Finance Committee meeting to order, January 19th, 2021 at 6:45. Consideration of claims. Chair would enter a motion for the approval of the claims.
So move. Second.
Thank you. Any amendments or discussion to the claims? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passed. Is there anything additional that the committee needs to review or discuss? No. Anything, Tony or Mia?
No, Your Honor, we have nothing.
I have nothing, Your Honor.
Thank you. In that case, meeting is adjourned at 6:47.
Yeah, I lived out there. They wanna know where our money's at again? Make any money if you guys always know where it's at.
How many new police officers do we have? I'm not sure. It's under, I would have like,
It's a neat magic trick you did there.
pretty good at that.
That was pretty awesome. I gotta figure out who has mine. At least sold it to some.
No one wants to make any mess ups. now call a January 19, 2020 regular meeting of the Riverton City Council to order at 7 p.m. The Pledge of Allegiance will be led in by Councilwoman Cox and the invocation by Councilwoman Borders.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you this evening and pray for your guidance in making the best decisions we can for our community. We thank you for all the wonderful people that have shown up at our meeting tonight and everyone watching online. And in Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Amen.
Would the city clerk please conduct roll call?
Yes, Your Honor. Councilwoman Carla Borders.
Here.
Councilwoman Lindsay Cox.
Here.
Councilman Mike Bailey.
Here.
Councilwoman Christy Salisbury.
Here.
Mayor Richard Gard.
Here. We would need to ask to excuse Councilman Larson for the entire meeting. Councilman Rhoda will be here shortly. The mail has to be delivered, and he's still out delivering mail. So as soon as he gets here, we'll acknowledge that. But we would need a motion to accept those absentees.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilwoman Borders. A second by Councilman Bailey. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Motion passes. I declare a quorum is present. The chair would entertain a motion to approve the agenda with the removal of 11, resolution number 1426.
So moved.
Second.
Councilwoman Borders has the motion. Councilman Bailey has the second. Council discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Communication from the floor. Anyone in the audience wishing to address the council regarding any item that is scheduled for a public hearing will be given the opportunity to speak during that public hearing. Anyone wishing to address the council on any other item may speak now. I would ask those individuals who wish to address the council at this time to approach the podium, identify yourself for the record.
Good evening, Mayor. My name is Carl Falcon, and I'm here at your invitation to give a presentation on some of the things I've been doing.
Appreciate that, Carl.
If I could have the screen dropped and the overhead projector turned on, that would be help. Turn just a little sideways so I can see the screen a little better. Mayor Gard, I believe you asked me to come here and talk about the work I've been doing with the Civil Air Patrol, and you gave me about 5 minutes, and I want to kind of squeeze everything in together to show you some other things that are related. And to save time, I've handed out a folder there with some press releases and flyers and fact sheets, which I think will be very helpful here. But I'm going to call my presentation here tonight, Community Building in Riverton. So just as an introduction about myself, after a visit to the area that made me aware of how amazing Wyoming is, I moved to Riverton from Texas in the summer of 2017. Now, I love this area, but I missed some of my favorite community building activities like the Civil Air Patrol, Wreaths Across America, the Sons of the American Revolution, and National Night Out. So with considerable help from others who were already engaged in these things, I brought them here. Now, the Civil Air Patrol's mission is supporting America's communities with emergency response, diverse aviation and ground services, youth development, and the promotion of air, space, and cyber power. They also assist local law enforcement with aerial surveillance for drug trafficking and forestry service with fire watches. While I've been here, since there was no Civil Air Patrol squadron in Fremont County, I transferred to the one in Cody from Texas, and commuting there during the week was problematic, as you can imagine. So the squadron commander there, Captain Jerry Cowles, agreed to help me start a unit here. We formed an element in 2018, which is the smallest unit of the Civil Air Patrol, and over the past 3 years, this unit has grown steadily as we've added, trained, and qualified our members. There was a Civil Air Patrol squadron in Riverton in the 50s and 60s, and our former County Commissioner, Doug Thompson, was one of the more notable members. Today, the process of forming a squadron is quite involved, but we officially chartered in 2020 with the requisite 18 members. The Wind River Composite Squadron continues and remains active and growing and improving even during the recent pandemic, which I'm very proud of because the Civil Air Patrol has been losing 2,000 members a month during the pandemic, while our particular unit has actually grown. The Civil Air Patrol routinely had missions here in the Fremont County, and one example of those is a search for Jose Pareda, where our air crew from Park County found his truck. I think this year, the Civil Air Patrol in 2020, they had about 4 missions in Wyoming total. But locally, we hope to add and qualify mission pilots and eventually have a plane allocated to this county. It's a great potential cost savings to the county since the Civil Air Patrol provides the airplane and crew for search and rescue operations, basically at the cost of fuel. That compares to $20,000 a day for like a National Guard helicopter. Wreaths Across America, an event that dovetails well with the Civil Air Patrol as Wreaths Across America, and their mission is to remember, honor, teach, and remember the fallen. We honor those who serve our families, and we teach the future generations about the sacrifices made to preserve our freedoms. They do this by placing wreaths on the graves of veterans each December in a dignified and moving ceremony that engages the entire community. For example, before I came up here, I participated in the same program for the Houston National Cemetery, where we placed 80,000 wreaths on all the graves in the cemetery and had 14,000 left over that we sent to Arlington. Now, Wreaths Across America in a nutshell, in 2019, Wreaths Across America placed over 2.2 million wreaths on graves of veterans. There were 2,100 participating locations in the United States and overseas, including the Luxembourg American Cemetery and the Netherlands American Cemetery Memorial. More than 2 million volunteers of all ages participated nationwide, with 38,000 volunteers alone participating at the Arlington National Cemetery, which is where this began. Now, another organization I'm very fond of is one of the largest male heritage organizations in the world. That's the Sons of the American Revolution. The National Society of the Sons of the American Revolution is a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization dedicated to promoting patriotism, preserving American history, and teaching American history to future generations. For example, I have 8 patriots in my ancestry, which I'm very proud of. One of them was a man named John Russell, who was at Lexington in 1775. Now, the Wind River chapter of the WISAR, that's the Wyoming State Society of the Sons of the American Revolution, was chartered in 2018, and it's relatively small compared to my chapter back in Texas, but it's already one of the leading chapters in the state. We're one of the few chapters in Wyoming with an active complement of officers, and we hosted the state conference in 2018. In 2020, we issued the only law enforcement awards in the state and created the first Patriot Chest of the State Society. National Night Out is another one I'm fond of. It's under the Town Watch, which is a volunteer auxiliary to the National Sheriff's Association, and they sponsor the annual National Night Out. This event is designed to bring local residents out to meet our first responders in person and get to know them better. This is an especially great community building exercise for law enforcement, but also includes fire and ambulance services as well. So, any questions on any of these?
No, sir.
All right, I'll just throw in a few pictures here because pictures are worth 1,000 words. and then I will let you get on with your meeting. Thank you, Mayor Guard, for the time and opportunity.
Thank you, Carl. Amazing what you do. Those are really worthwhile activities, and we appreciate them in Riverton.
Well, I enjoy doing it, and I'm very happy to do it here.
If we can be of further assistance, we would like to. Thank you very much for your service.
I'll hold you to that.
Thanks. Is there anyone else that would like to address the council?
Mayor and council, my name is Jeff Keel. I'm the business manager for the Riverton Fire Protection District. And I'm here tonight to let the council know. Did you give them a copy of the?
I have it.
Okay. The fire district is preparing an MRG grant for the State Land and Investment Board for the replacement of 2 fire trucks. The grant will be in for the June 17th meeting, and we've got about a month and a half to get it to Cheyenne. The reason I'm here tonight is to explain to you as a governing board that we're going after this grant. Total grant money is $1.3 million. We're asking for $650 from the state, and the district has $650 in its reserves right now. Part of the grant application is we have to notify our counterparts in public service and governmental entities. We've been to the county and got a letter of blessing from them. And that's why I'm here tonight, is to let you know what we're doing and to ask for a letter of support on behalf of the Riverton District. If there's any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them.
Okay. Tony, I don't see that. Did I not see that on the agenda? We do need to get a vote correctly.
Mayor, if I may, you may take motion to provide a letter of support and to have staff prepare that, and we will do that and to have it taken care of right now.
Anybody want to make that motion?
So moved.
Second.
So moved and seconded. Councilwoman Cox with the motion, and Councilwoman Borders with the second. Any further discussion? Jeff, that's a real good costume, sneaking in here looking like an old man.
Well, it works.
Recognized you.
It works. Keep doing it.
It works, doesn't it? We all get a little bit old. It's nice to have you come and join us.
I just have more hair than you, Mayor.
That's correct. I'd trade you. This is kind of a low maintenance.
It's taken a lot of years to get where we are.
That's right. With that consideration, is there any questions that anyone would have of Jeff?
Thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
A lot of work. And
It's nice to have somebody not come in and ask for money.
Yeah, it is.
However,
Just
if you got a
$650,000.
little left,
So we'd now take a vote on that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Thanks, Jeff. We appreciate it.
thank you, Your Honor. Thank you,
Right away.
council.
Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to address the council? Seeing none, would the city clerk please read the consent agenda items by title only?
Yes, Your Honor. Approval of the minutes, January 5th, 2021, regular council meeting. Approval of the minutes, January 19th, 2021, Finance Committee meeting. Approval of the Finance Committee recommendations for January 19th, 2021. Approval of the municipal court report for the month of December 2020. And an open container permit application submitted by Bar 10 for the Rendezvous Games at City Park on February 20th, 2021, from 1 p.m. to 10 p.m.
Thank you. Are there any items requiring further discussion?
Your Honor,
Yes.
Finance Committee met earlier this evening and agreed to consideration of claims to be paid in the amount of $354,646.08. Manual check to be paid in the amount of $791. Payroll and liabilities for 12/31/2020 in the amount of $224,717.80, for a total of $580,154.88.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda items as presented.
So moved.
Councilman Bailey has the motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Councilwoman Cox has the second. Any council discussion? Mike?
Your Honor, I would abstain from the Bailey Enterprises item on the Finance Committee list.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Introduction and oath of officers, new Riverton Police Department personnel. Police Chief's report, please.
Your Honor, may I take my mask off?
Please.
Thank you. So, I get the distinct privilege of introducing all of our new officers tonight. So would their significant others come up to whoever's going to pin them, please? So, I would like to introduce Bhagya Nethakamura. She was born and raised in Columbia, Sri Lanka. She worked in Savannah, Georgia as a police officer for 5 years. And she likes photography and take her dog to national parks. So Bhagya is our first officer. Go ahead and. The next one is her husband, Don Nethakamura. He was born and raised in Columbia, Sri Lanka. Worked in Savannah, Georgia as a police officer for 5 years. He likes hiking, fishing, and camping. Next, we have Jack Johnson, who was born and raised in Lander. Graduated yesterday from the Lander High School. 21, so. He's a huge outdoor guy, likes to spend lots of time outdoors. And then we have Caitlin Bedard, who is our new dispatcher. She was born in Billings, Montana. She was raised here in Riverton, Wyoming. Went to the Riverton High School and graduated in 2018, so another young one. And she likes to work out at the gym. She likes work, and she likes to hike. And it took her a long time to give me that list. So, Mayor, if you want to come down and swear them in, please.
You okay here? Yep. So if you want to raise your right hand and repeat after me. I do solemnly swear or affirm
I solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support and obey and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Wyoming,
the Constitution of the State of Wyoming,
that I have not knowingly violated the law
that I have not knowingly violated any law
in my election or my appointment,
in my election or my appointment,
or caused it to be done by others,
or caused it to be done by others,
and that I will discharge my duties of my office with fidelity.
and that I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity.
Thank you.
They're gonna come around.
Welcome.
Congratulations.
Welcome aboard. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate your service. Thank you. Thanks again.
Welcome aboard. Congratulations. Welcome aboard. Welcome. Welcome aboard.
Good to see you. Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Usually we get a mass exodus after we do this. And so I'd like to throw in that this week, the police department and the chief asked me, I don't know if the police department much cared, but I felt that it was a real honor to be able to get in their picture. And I just wanted all the officers to know that I appreciated that. So thank you very much. We have one other item, item number 10, that is more of a omission by my part, and that is that Councilman Rhoda has been on the engagement committee, and he would like to continue to be on that committee. And so at this time, we'd like to present that as a mayoral appointment and see if we could get a sustaining vote for that. So I would need a motion to move forward on that.
So moved.
Second.
Councilwoman Cox has the motion, and Councilwoman Borders has the second. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. WYDOT CARES Act Agreement Addendum, Public Works Director's report, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Before you tonight is Amendment 1 to the agreement that the city entered into to participate in the Capacity Purchase Program. As a reminder, the City Council approved to enter this program on August 6, 2019. This basically allowed the city to transition from its previous air service provider to SkyWest Airlines. The manner by which we opted into the program was through an MOU. And as you know, SkyWest Airlines began service to Central Wyoming Regional Airport January 12th, 2020, just about a year ago now. The advent and associated impacts of COVID-19 requires WYDOT and the city to amend its previous MOU. And the amendments are pretty minimal and actually to our favor. The first of which allows the incorporation of CARES Act dollars to be applied to our MOU. The state of Wyoming, and more specifically the Department of Transportation, received CARES Act funding to support air service. And those funds are being applied to our contract with SkyWest at this time, and this amendment takes that into account. The second allows for the state, SkyWest, and our community to be more nimble when we look at appropriate schedules and loads as we respond to the impacts of COVID-19. There are no adverse effects or budget impacts to this outside of what I've already mentioned with the CARES Act. As it explains, 2/3 of CARES Act dollars will be applied to our revenue guarantee payment, and then the balance of which will be split at the ratio of 60-40, which is the ratio we use for all of our other payments. With that, Your Honor, I'll turn the floor back to you.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to approve Amendment 1 to the MOU between WYDOT and the city of Riverton.
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Bailey has the motion. Councilwoman Border has the second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Sales tax economic indicator presentation. City Administrator's report, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mayor, Council, before you, you have my memo, which contains within it two tables. The items before you today are partially introduction to our new members, but also update for the others and yourselves. We gauge economic development in the city in a number of ways. Sometimes it's number of businesses or new businesses, but one of the most consistent ones we use is the collection of sales tax year over year and to see how we're doing. The item that you have before you is actually the tracking sheets that do that for us. And so I'm going to give just a brief walkthrough of how it works, and then we're going to talk about some of the trends just quickly about what we are seeing. At one of the next couple meetings, you'll be hearing the quarterly fiscal health report, which is much more comprehensive. This is simply one item that we use to help gauge where we are at in our economic situation. So the first column that you see to your left denotes an average percent of total. The number that you have there is basically derived from figuring out how much over 8-year period in each of those months. So January, on average, over 8 years, collects what percentage of the total sales tax that is collected in those previous years. We use that to determine the average percentage collected in those and then apply it later on. Fiscal year 18, 19, and 20 columns are actual numbers that were collected in those months in those categories, so sales and use tax. And we're going to talk about those combined because when we look at the total picture of economic activity, that's how you would usually do it. Fiscal year 21 column denotes exactly how much we have collected in each of these months. So, for instance, in July, we're supposed to collect historically approximately 8.1%. In our case, we collected $146,782. If compared to the total budget of FY21, that would be 10.05%, showing an increase over projected budget. The number below fiscal year 21 budget, below the $1.46 million in the July category, illustrates what we would, the 8.1% times the 1.46. That's essentially what we would project to collect in that particular month. The fiscal year variance illustrates that month's variance from the projected amount. So again, just a projected amount in budget. So in that month, we were about short of $28,000 to the good, $28,000 more than we would have collected otherwise. The total variance line is a running line that keeps a running tally. So once you get all the way down to January, you can see how much above or below by taking into account each of the particular months. The same exact method is used to track the use tax. So they're pretty much exactly the same. What you do not see here is that we have multiple years that aren't shown for the sake of just trying to keep it compact, but we do take into account that analysis and we can modify it. The reason that we use percentages instead of actual dollars is it takes out the variable of inflation, and it just discusses it takes into account what is actually collected, what is the behavior in those particular months, and then applies it accordingly. So, at this year, one of the things that is a little different about this year is when we started this whole process, we were just beginning the COVID lockdown. City Hall had been shut down. It was a very unknown time. It's coming on almost a year ago. We had a lot of questions ahead of us and not a lot of answers. As such, we actually reduced the projected amount or the budgeted amount for sales tax dollars, which is, by the way, your major general fund revenue source, by approximately 20%. So that's a pretty big hit. And we planned on we built a budget around 20% because we wanted to be conservative. We got this number by working with other communities and trying to look at the Craig reports, every piece of information we had at that time. So 20%, you'll see statewide, is relatively common as part of the projections. The good news is that with this year, we've actually, as you can see sorry, I'm trying to get to my problem with these things sorry, one sec. There we are, I found it. As you can see in the tables, we have actually done better than we had planned. And that's really good. So how much better? Well, when you combine them, as you can see within the memo, we're looking at approximately 4.5% over what we collected last year. Well, that's really good, and that would be a pretty good every single year. But we would love to see that behavior. However, we did not expect it this year. So good. It's better than the alternative of telling you, hey, we're 4.5% low, let's talk about cuts. However, we've seen the performance differently across sales and use, but we do tend to combine those. So being 4.5% low, I apologize, compared to fiscal year 20, being approximately combined 4.5% to the good, that's outstanding. We like that. However, the real good news is the fiscal year 21 projection comparison has a significantly better because we planned for 20% and didn't see it. That's nice. What's going to happen with that? Well, generally speaking, we did approve like an additional police vehicle last meeting. One of the questions that was asked, I believe it was Councilman Salisbury, is, do we have that money? Yes, these are some of the things that we're looking at when we're saying, do we expect to have that money at the end of the year? Ideally, we would look to close out the year ahead of, and then this money would then move forward and could be used in, reallocated within the next budget cycle. However council sees fit. Obviously, that's a much different conversation. Now, we do know that there are monies at the state level that may very well be cut. We know some of that is coming, that's proposed with direct distribution. So the good news is some of this money can offset some of that money in the next year and help try to carry us through a little bit. So the good news is that we continue to track this every single month. A couple things to keep in mind. One, every month you see of collections is actually 2 months behind. So if you see, sorry, let me get up here. If you look at the December numbers, or take the December numbers any month, they are actually collected in October. Why does that matter? Well, by the time we actually figure out what the trend is, a lot of the time, we're already 2 months behind. So if we ever see a problem, which luckily we haven't seen a significant one in the last 3 years at least, then we have to tend to react a little quickly because we're already behind the 8 ball on that one. However, doesn't happen, and we tend to be more conservative in our budgeting. So, Your Honor, with that, I have not much else to add other than to say that we're really happy that this is the kind of trend we're seeing. I've been asked consistently, why? There's as many theories as there are numbers on this page, probably. One of the common ones is that with lockdowns and with the lack of travel, people have been spending money locally. More so, there's been less travel, so they get all of their needs met here. We do receive sales tax off of items like Amazon. So even when people order those do come. That's something that's been worked through. There are a number of recreational equipment has skyrocketed. Try to find a kayak or a bicycle. It's impressive. Other ones are very, very similar. So different fields are showing different activity. The good news is comparatively, we're doing relatively well. Other places have not weathered it quite the same way. So if you look at the map across the state, different counties have seen different impacts. We're lucky to be on our side of the zero line. With that, Your Honor, I don't have anything else. We will have a fiscal health report at the next meeting, which will take into account the numbers that you see, but won't discuss them probably in as much detail unless you ask. And Mia always knows it better than I do anyway. So, Your Honor, with that, I have nothing else.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? I think, having been part of that, I think I would like to thank the people of Riverton. We could have extracted back into our shells, and we could have been really scary, and we could have followed trends, and I think that people continue to do their businesses, and we've tried hard to keep those businesses open and going, and it hasn't been easy for those people that are paying sales tax. And so I would just like to commend them for their willingness to do that. All of us pay sales tax, I realize, but those stores that collect that and pass it on to the state is really important to us, and that's how we fund a lot of these things. And lots of times we lose track of the fiscal responsibility that the city shared was to be willing to cut the budget significantly. We cut the budget by $1.3 million of an $8 million budget, which has given us that latitude to move. And one of the things we cut was a police car. And our fleet is getting old, and so as we saw those revenues come in, we're cautiously optimistic that we can pay for that police car. And thank goodness for good staff. Mia Harris does a wonderful job at keeping us aware of that. This presentation is one that Tony brought from Douglas, I believe, is where you developed that, didn't you?
Yes, we did.
And it's a timeline that's active in his office all the time. And so we can track that and see how well we're doing. And I would just like to tell the public of Riverton, thanks a lot for staying in the game and continuing to do business in Riverton, so we appreciate it. There's no action needed there, so we would move forward into the comments and reports. I don't know, we're still a fairly new board. Christy, do you have anything that you'd like to comment on?
I first want to thank the staff that helped us get started for our first meeting. Tony and Megan, Kristen, all of you guys have been very welcoming, and we appreciate you getting us up to date on things, so thank you for that. I am on the Chamber of Commerce Committee, so I contacted the chamber and am on their email list and know when the meetings are and what's going on. They had a committee meeting for the 5K that'll be happening in June, but I don't know much about that yet. And the other thing I wanted to say is I was out walking the other evening after 5 p.m. and our city workers were out fixing all the water breaks. So I took a picture of them and put them on the snap map so anybody that's looking at Riverton can touch a little blue dot and see our workers out there working. So I appreciate that for them too.
Thanks, Christy. I skipped item 14, and we'll have to go back and pick that up. We may have to get me replaced somehow. Maybe we could put a shocker in my chair or something.
I made them pose.
Your Honor, I thought I was living right, and it just got skipped.
I could tell Kyle sat back in his chair, and I thought, that's odd, that's what's wrong. So we do have a Central Wyoming Regional Airport employment presentation. Public Workers Director's report, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'll just plug in my laptop real quick.
So everyone understands, Kyle is the only one that can actually make that work in the middle of a meeting, which is why he's always the one up there. I have failed at it 3 times straight, so I gave up.
Thank you, Your Honor. And again, my feelings would not have been hurt if you guys wanted to end early tonight. But it is a pleasure to stand before you and talk a little bit about Central Wyoming Regional Airport and give you an update on some of the traffic that we have there. Mr. Tolstead asked that I do this today, and I'm very happy to do that. Just as a quick intro, especially for those of you who are new on our city council, there are 40 publicly owned airports in the state of Wyoming. Central Wyoming Airport is one of 9 of those 40 that offer commercial air service. So when we consider Central Wyoming Regional Airport, it is a jewel of our region because there aren't very many that offer commercial connectivity to the National Transportation Network. You'll notice there, and I can get you a copy of this, but you'll see the breakdown of different airports. And this does include the Intergalactic Spaceport in Green River. I have not had the privilege of launching from there, but maybe one day I will. Central Wyoming Regional Airport, just as a brief review, had its first terminal built in the 50s. The one that we utilize now was built in 1998. And I got to say, we have one of the nicest terminals in the state of Wyoming. And even though it is showing a little bit of age, it is easy to use, and I think it's one that represents our community very well. Our runway is a little over 8,000 feet long, and it's built in such a way that we can accommodate large aircraft. Our crosswind, about 4,800 feet long. What that means is we have different classifications of type of aircraft that can utilize what was previously Riverton Regional Airport and now Central Wyoming Regional Airport. We are built on our main runway as a C3 classification. That can accommodate, as you see on the chart on the right, Boeing 737, and it's definitely big enough for the RJ200 that we currently use, the 50-seat jet. Our crosswind runway is not built to that standard, and that's typical. Usually the crosswind is built a little bit smaller, and that's classified as a B2. That accommodates a lot of our private pilots, and then also the Beechcraft 1900, which we previously used. Also something to be aware of, and we get into this a little bit more at another date, but as a commercial service airport, we are regulated by the FAA under Part 139 rules. So when I come to talk to you about snow removal purchases or other purchases or leases, a lot of those items aren't just dictated by city policy, it's dictated by FAA policy under that Part 139 regulation. But we won't bore you with that right now. In the industry, we typically track use of commercial airports through emplanements. It's half the equation. Emplanements, again, are people taking off from our area, from Fremont County. This graph shows basically 10 years use worth of data out of Central Wyoming Regional Airport. And you can see for the first few years there, we were very routine in our pattern. Low winter months, high summer months. That's typical with the transportation industry on the whole. But once the pilot shortage hit and the 1,500-hour rule hit, we saw significant and dramatic decreases in ridership out of our local airport. So much so that we all know that we were at risk of losing commercial airport or losing commercial air service altogether, similar to Worland lost air service. You'll notice in the summer of 2016, our fortunes reversed, and a lot of that is thanks to the City Council and their foresight in bringing in Denver Air Connection. We had both Great Lakes and Denver Air Connection operating out of Central Wyoming Regional Airport for a little over a year. And you'll notice that our numbers immediately improved by having the right service and the right size aircraft. That again was found true just a year ago when SkyWest started its service. And you'll notice, and I like to point this out, we started that in January. And if you look at those early January months, that first month and second month with SkyWest actually exceeded our historical pattern during the off season of travel. So 2020 was going to be a great year, and I'm sure I'm not the only one that's ever said that. But doggone it, that darn COVID hit and changed our fortunes a little bit, but that's okay. We roll with punches here, you know, and we respond as we're meant to. Obviously, the pandemic has had worldwide transportation impacts. The industry saw over 90% loss, not just in passengers, but in operating revenue. Like many businesses affected by the pandemic, the air transportation industry was knocked down hard. Thanks to the support of our congressional delegates, air service continues. And air service in Riverton at Central Wyoming Regional Airport continues, right? So a few things that have happened to us is we've had to adjust our schedule. We are used to having 2 round-trip flights a day. Years previous, we had more, but we got used to that 2 round-trip flight, and it really suits our market. But with the pandemic, we adjusted our available flights to match the load factor. With that minimum revenue guarantee component, the last thing we want to do is waste money on empty planes. So we scaled back to 1 flight a day to match the demand. Around the holidays, SkyWest was very nimble, and they brought in added flights to support our community so people could travel, see family, and get in and out of Fremont County with ease. The other thing that we've seen, and hats off to Kristen's team for increasing our sanitation efforts in the terminal. We are a port of entry to the county, so making sure that travelers feel safe and comfortable at our port of entry is important, and Kristen's team has done a lot for that. They even brave electric shock when they use our electrostatic sprayers to disinfect our terminal. If you want to know more about that, you can talk to our building maintenance team. In addition to that, United has stepped up its sanitation efforts. I'll go out on a limb and I'll say probably the safest place you can be during this pandemic is on an airplane. The air filters they have and the sanitation procedures that they implement really protect the public. And those that have flown during the pandemic, I think, have appreciated that. And especially those that have been concerned going into it, they see that the transportation industry and the airports take seriously their responsibility to protect public health. National passengers nationwide, these are TSA throughput numbers. It's a daily number showing the people that have gone through the checkpoints nationwide through TSA. So every time you have to raise your arms and look kind of funny and get screened, that's the number. So the gray line represents 2019 numbers. The orange line is 2020. You see, that is the impact that we've had, and we've not recovered as of yet, but we're getting there. And people, I think, are feeling more confident, and as we get closer to getting beyond that doggone COVID-19. How does that look locally? From data points I've been able to show in this graph, year-over-year changes, green 2018, blue 2019, or 219, and then orange is 2020. One thing I really like to point out again is that dramatic increase when we started with SkyWest. What does that tell you? Well, one, we have a demand here. Fremont County needs to connect to the National Transportation Network. And two, we have the right partner right now. With SkyWest offering service through United Express, people can enjoy all the perks of flying on United here locally. And we have the right sized aircraft. So capacity is right, partner is right. April, we had less than 30 people fly for the entire month. Think about that. That's less than a full plane on a day for the whole month. But we have rebounded. And you notice that we've ended those last few months, November and December, above the trends year over year. I think that's pretty incredible. So by the numbers, what does that show us? Even with the pandemic, we only saw a 1% drop in our annual employments in 2020. We'll see what 2021 brings. It's got to be better, right?
Yep.
It will. I'm optimistic, and I think our community is as well. But you'll notice April, May, June, July, we were digging ourselves out as far as an airport goes, as far as those who fly go. When you have 95% drop, that matched national trends, but we've responded a little bit quicker. Some of that has to do with just the size of our market, the type of service we had. We ended December 30% above year over year. Pretty crazy. So before I transition and allow you guys to get back to your reports, I think it'd be appropriate to talk a little bit about SkyWest, and I will be brief, but again, this is the partner we have currently, and I don't want to disparage in any way Denver Air Connection. They were the right partner to come in at the right time, and without their efforts, SkyWest's success wouldn't have happened. So Denver Air Connection was a wonderful partner for us, as is SkyWest. SkyWest started in 1972. They were really an FBO outfit in St. George, Utah, and they puddle jumped to Salt Lake, and then they grew. But their real service model right now is to partner with the legacy carriers, the four main ones, United, Alaska, American, and Delta. And even through your flying experiences through the years, you've probably been on more SkyWest flights than you even realize. And the reason is because SkyWest has such a trusted brand and business that these legacy carriers let them use their branding, their livery, their employees. So you could be on a SkyWest flight and just think you're flying American. That speaks, again, to their reputation. I like this because in 1982, SkyWest actually broke into Wyoming. So they've been in Wyoming for quite a while. These service maps show how they've grown, but this is what they do today. And I don't show this so that you get overwhelmed and think, well, why would they ever focus on Fremont County, Wyoming? Because they do focus on us. We have a call every single month with some of their main market developers. The reason I show this is it brings to play the backing that this company has and the connection that our community has to that National Transportation Network. It's pretty incredible. SkyWest is highly recognized in the industry. Just recently, I did a Google search and found that 2020 they were rated as one of the top 50 places to work. That was through Glassdoor. The way they got that was by ratings of the employees. Fortune 500 has listed them as one of the most admired companies to work for, and the FAA and other industries have recognized SkyWest's efforts. This is the partner we have in Fremont County. I mentioned the United Express advantage. People who fly out of our local airport can earn SkyMiles points, redeem SkyMiles points, utilize the convenience of the United app, and all of the other perks that come with a legacy carrier. This shows briefly the aircraft that we utilize currently. SkyWest has invested in the CRJ200. That's a 50-seat jet. They're one of the most, well, let me put it this way. as a regional air service company, they have invested the most in the RJ200. A few years ago, there was a fear that the 200s would actually cycle out and go to those airplane graveyards that you see on TV. But SkyWest saw the value of providing service to these regional markets, and it's fit their business model. So they've invested in their fleet and also the maintenance necessary to keep the RJs flying up through 2030. That provides security for us. We know that the aircraft that matches our need will be in service for several years to come. And if we grow our market, SkyWest also operates a high fleet, a high number of 70-seat jets in their fleet. That was a pretty quick rundown, don't you think?
It's good.
All right, well, this is my second daughter, Olivia, on one day when she was pretty happy, so I like to use this photo. So even if you're mad or concerned, I'm open to any questions that you may have, but just as a closing statement, I want to thank you for your support for Central Wyoming Regional Airport. Having reliable commercial air service here promotes economic development. It promotes quality of life. It makes Riverton, Lander, Thermopolis, all these places great to live in. Hats off to Jim Gores in the audience. He's a longtime member of our airport board, earning over, member of FAST. So thank you, City Council, for your time tonight.
Thanks, Kyle. Appreciate it. Sorry to have jumped you. That was a good report.
No worries.
Yeah, I just want to say my kids are the reason those numbers are so high. They've flown like the last 3 or 4 weeks in a row, both of them. So.
And a personal thank you from me.
Yes.
Kyle doesn't do the numbers like I do, but I get the reports from that, and in the last 18 days, coming and going out of Riverton to Denver, we've had 804 passengers. They only count the enplanements, but we had 311 planes leave in the morning, or passengers leave in the morning, 69 midday, and coming back from Denver in the evening, we had 350, and midday we had 74. And Christy called me today, and we talked about the airport, and she asked some real pertinent questions, and we don't tag right now, and so as I wander on, Ernie or Kyle could fix me. We have tagged in the past, which means we fly with another destination. So we would fly from Riverton, fly into Riverton from Denver, offload, and then fly on to Sheridan. The plane would overnight in Sheridan, and it would do the reverse back to Riverton, pick up passengers, and back to Denver. And so that's what they call a tag. And currently we have enough people that we can get that one plane loaded, and that plane comes from Denver overnights on the Riverton tarmac. They're thinking that maybe we could get a hangar for that plane, so it would be inside. But those are just wonderfully great numbers. Occasionally we have tagged with Rock Springs, and we'll fly from Riverton to Rock Springs and pick up people and then into Denver. And so to make Riverton successful, we need a few things, and an airport is one of them. And so I just would like to thank the FAST group. That's been an important committee since its conception. The airport board, Jim Gore's in the room, they work really hard to make sure that the airport's functioning. We have a really good airport. This last month, we had an emergency landing. Remind me of the name of the company. I should have it in my Key Lime.
Key Lime.
Thanks, Mike. And they lost hydraulics and were able to lock down their gear and land in Riverton safely. But to do that, we had to respond with our fire crew and everything that was available. I believe our fire truck up there is almost a $500,000 piece of equipment. And so Mia's nodding her head. She wrote the check. So that is commendable for our airport. And lots of times, if you go up midday, you'll see commercial jets, large commercial jets, sitting on our tarmac, refueling and coming through. And so we really are grateful to have that economy, and we appreciate all the effort. When we talk about monies, revenues, and the half-cent tax, the half-cent tax helps pay that landing fee, and that's going to be a really great thing for us. But the city of Riverton still takes out of their coffers around $300,000 a year to maintain that airport. And so it is a burden on Riverton, and we appreciate the citizens supporting that. What we have now for you, though, is a real working scenario. We have the cheapest airplane in the state of Wyoming, I do believe. And people from Jackson are now traveling to Riverton to use our air service instead of flying out of Jackson. And so we have zero cost for parking, and our on-time delivery is fabulous. So if you're thinking of flying, we would encourage you to look at our airspace, and we now have the car rental covered, and Mr. Bailey was kind enough to step in and fix that problem for us. And so the only problem we have left that we'd really like to fix is the cafeteria, and we'll work on that. So if anybody knows of any solutions, we'd like to hear them. So I appreciate that update, Kyle. Thank you very much. So let's get back to reports. Mike, do you have anything to add?
Yes, again, I did attend the airport board meeting, and Mr. Larson, Councilman Larson was there also, and so I was sweating it here, thinking I didn't bring all my numbers with it, so thank you, Kyle, for giving all that information. Again, a big thanks out to the FAST committee that's been working for many, many years in keeping, Riverton with air service. I mean, they were vital, and if we wouldn't have started way back then, when all of this hit, we'd have been sunk. We would not have an airport today. So they've done an amazing job. And through all the things that Kyle talked about, getting Denver Air Connections in here and getting SkyWest. And so, yeah, we've got fantastic service, very economical prices. Again, just like if you're flying out of the big city, you've got everything that they offer there other than no parking fees and no lines.
That's right.
The other thing that's been great that we talked about at the airport board meeting is the general aviation activity at the airport has also been improving. So those numbers are all up really good over last year, over 2019. Even though we had the pandemic, we still had increased general aviation traffic up at the airport. So again, I think things are really looking up, and it's a great feature for Fremont County and Riverton. So I also got to attend the Force Committee meeting, and we're hard at the city staff, and they are hard at getting all of the projects that we have upcoming for next year into the planning and bidding stage. So hopefully here in February, March range, we can bid some of these projects. And again, that Force Committee, that 1 cent tax that we get to help deal with our infrastructure and roads generates somewhere a little over $2 million a year that we have turned around and spent on water streets and curb and gutter, and some water projects got tied into those. And so I think we've made some really amazing improvements to the city over the last 4 years, and we've got another 4 years to keep on doing a great job on that. So we're getting ready to bid those projects so that we can hit the ground running as soon as the weather clears in the spring, and we'll be fixing more and more streets and stuff in Riverton. So that's always been a great project for the city, and the Force Committee group has always been very frugal with the taxpayers' monies. They are very, very careful that they are not spending one dime of that money on something that it was not designed to be spent on. So they're very careful in that respect. So, and I think that's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. Lindsay.
I had my first meeting with PAWS tonight before this meeting. So I was able to meet the board members, and it looks like it's a great group of women that I'm looking forward to working with. Their main thing that they're focusing on right now is an online auction because they weren't able to do the Paws and Pearls in the fall. They moved to online, which they'll have another one in February. About mid-February, they go off of Mardi Gras. So And it'll be open for a month. So that will be online on Facebook. They also said that they've had a lot of success locating missing animals through their Facebook page. So if you haven't liked that page yet, go ahead and do that, because they share a lot of pictures, and they said through social media they're able to get their pets back to their owners easier. So also I wanted to let you guys know that as far as adoptions, they had 14 dogs adopted in December and 25 cats adopted. So that was good numbers for them. And that's about it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. Okay, so Corey and I both serve on the Community Engagement Committee. That conflicted with the Fremont County Rec Board meeting for the first meeting of the year, so we both attended the Rec Board. Received a lot of really good applications for funding, lots of neat projects going on. And then I wanted to give a plug for the Rendezvous Games. They're going to be February 20th at City Park. For anyone that's interested, they can get a hold of Rebecca Schatze. And then I have a plug for one of the officers, Christian Amos. I know he would be way too modest to say anything, but he's been training really hard in powerlifting. And he went to a meet in Casper this weekend, and he lifted over 1,100 pounds.
Wow.
And in 3 different lifts. So I just wanted to give him a plug. He's a really nice young man and worked really hard, so I'm proud of him. And I think that's all I have.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I usually jump over you, but let's have the administrator's report.
Thought I was going to join the club with Kyle for a second, but it's okay.
It's good to be a big club.
Your Honor, I only have a couple of items. You do have before you tonight, and you may have already turned them in, the financial disclosure statements. Those have to be signed every year by council once seated. If you can get those filled out, signed, and provided to Kristen, that would help us a great deal. We do have Edge Committee this week. Edge Committee is held the 3rd Thursday of every month, so it'll be this Thursday. The current activity is developing the application form. We have developed a draft that has been sent out to the committee. The committee then will give us feedback at this one, and the discussion will likely revolve around whether or not to begin accepting applications in advance, and maybe the possibility of doing a ranking of existing applications. What that looks like in terms of time frame or the like, I'm not sure of, because the board hasn't worked on that. But we are working towards a very public process once those applications go out. The application forms we're trying to balance between being, very, very extensive and making sure we have all the information. It's going to depend on what type of projects come forward, about how much information and what information is appropriate. So we're trying to be as flexible as we can there. We have a very good model in what's been done with the Force Committee, the way that things have been provided for information, the process in and of itself. So we have something good to go off of, and they've done a nice job. So we look to mirror that as much as we can, even though this is an economic development board as opposed to roads. A little bit of difference, but I think there's a lot of good standards that we can meet there. FAST will meet this Friday at 11. The mayor and I will attend FCAG this next week on Thursday, the 28th. That organization, as you know, Fremont County Association of Governments, will meet. They've been doing some ongoing work that also has to do with the Big Blue Bus and the good work that they do. Urban Systems did meet last week. We'll have another meeting in about 3 months. Council is likely to consider some updates to the agreements for Urban Systems. Urban Systems essentially is a board that is composed of members of the county, the city appointees, and then there's a state representative also in there. And there are monies that are funneled to us that not enough to do any one project in a particular year, but it is allowed to build up over time. And we're getting to the point where we may have the opportunity to partner. So that you'll start seeing that and become a little more familiar with that as time goes on in the very near future. Those conversations are coming to the front right now. As Councilwoman Borders did denote, Engagement Committee last week and Rendezvous Games on the 20th. There are some changes this year proposed. It is going to be in the afternoon. Going to be on, so I believe we have the park from about noon to 10, but you're looking from about 1 to 5-ish for those, then ice judging and lanterns and the like. So we're really looking forward to that. A couple new changes. We already have I believe we have 2 teams currently registered. Is that correct? I think we have 2 teams registered. As pointed out, you can contact Rebecca Schatz, or you can contact the city, and we can help you, and registration is done through us. Paperwork and all of that has been done. So, Your Honor, I would point out, I had a really interesting morning, and sometimes I get to get out, and Mayor called me this morning, called Kyle first, and called me, and he had a report of some water running. And so I happened to be about 3 blocks from it, so I turned over, and then I about lost my truck. So we did have a water break this morning, and I was to let you know, kind of, that was at 10th and Lincoln. Is that correct? 10th and Lincoln, in the alleyway, and I got to see some of the pictures. I could have put my entire arm in the hole that caused it, and I also saw the good work that they did. Why do I mention this? We do water breaks a lot, but we've done 6 in the last 3 weeks. That's a lot of work. They've done an exceptional job, done a great job of alerting people that their water is going to be off, and minimize that as much as they possibly can. And our teams have tried to work when there's been smaller breaks to try to not shut off, a school or kind of let that go to a certain point to reduce that impact. They've done an exceptional job. So if you didn't know, there was 6 in the last 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, last 2 weeks. I'm sorry, last 2 weeks. That math's out a little different. It's because of the good work they've been doing, and we do appreciate what they do. They keep the water going, they keep it clean, and they do a nice job of it. Your Honor, with that, I have nothing else, but it was a fun day.
Thank you, appreciate it. I have kind of a long list, and I don't know if I need to hold out for Corey, but I'll zoom through mine. After the last council meeting, Tony and I were able, along with Councilman Bailey, we had a Zoom meeting with the joint tribal councils. So what that consists of is we had the Northern Arapaho Council on Zoom, and we had the Eastern Shoshone tribe. And so with the new officers elected there, we introduced ourselves, and we're trying to build inroads there to where we can have an open conversation of what we need to do, what we can help each other with, and try to have a good dialogue there. And that went well. I also was invited to a grant writers meeting for FTAG that was just for mayors and commissioners. And I kind of thought that we would go into that meeting and come out with a consensus that we needed a grant writer. And I came out of the meeting with the renowned idea that we did not, and so we'll have to look at a different way to do that. But the greater group decided that that was something that we didn't want to look at. The cost of that was estimated through CWC costing about $275,000 to create all those positions. And so that would take a sizable chunk of money. And so we're gonna make Mia do it. That's what we decided. And so,
Gonna pay her that much?
no, we're not gonna pay her any more. We're just gonna do like we always do, just expect more.
It's a promotion.
We do appreciate what she does, and we'll try to get those city staff members on her level together and see what we can do to make that work and not overburden them. So we'll have to see how that works. With that, we've had an ongoing discussion about the Wind River Travel Council. And it's been a conversation that I turned over to Tony, and Tony did a real good job of running that information to the ground, and I appreciate his work. And we do have 2 representatives that sit on that committee, And that committee funds about a little over $700,000 a year. And so what it is it's a tourist dollar. It's generated off the bed tax, the travel tax. And so we get some TAD money that comes into the Chamber of Commerce, about a little under $5,000 a month that the chamber puts to use. And so we're trying to figure out how to get that and how to make that more beneficial for Riverton. And that was a big conversation in the last 2 weeks, and we've touched all the partners in that. And we had to go through the mayors of 3 other locations to get that information. And so it was useful time, and I think we'll improve that. And what we're hoping to do is to include more information to the Riverton Council about what they're doing for tourist dollars in Fremont County. So we have some input to say, you know, and their thought process is kind of targeted of fishing and boating, and sometimes they don't think we have what we have, but we're going to show them the 5 Ponds district and see what they can do with that. So we'll do our best there. We've had some interest in some joint meetings, and we're going to go into executive session on land sales, and we'll look at some of those items in a few minutes. Riverton ambassadors had a meeting that both Tony and I went to. The force meeting was excellent. We had 4 new committee members, and I appreciate the input from the community, and we've had a renewed effort to get those committees staffed. And so I appreciate those new members on that committee. I was in that meeting for 5 or 6 minutes before I got called out. So I do appreciate Mike being there and the work that he puts in on those activities. I don't know if you know or have seen, but through the CARES Act, Shoshone has purchased the left tackle and has turned it into a clinic and a therapy unit. And the hospital out of Thermopolis is putting that therapy group in there, and they're having a doctor and staff visit that location on, I believe, Mondays and Thursdays of every week. And so that's a real important thing in Shoshone, and I was able to go to that open house and work on that. I mentioned it a little bit earlier, but I was really pleased and thankful that the police chief asked me to be in the photo with the police officers, and I appreciated that. Other than that, we did have a water break this morning, and that was reported to me by a citizen early, and because of the staff that we have, I've already got pictures on my phone of the repair. And as I pulled into the driveway of my house about 5:30, I got a call from Brian, and he is overseeing that. I'd stopped by the site earlier today and mentioned to him some ideas that I had, and he was just calling me back to tell me that those weren't the very best ideas. And I appreciated his effort. And there for a second, I thought we maybe were married, but we're not. So lots of times we get to thinking that, where does all the money go? And the repair that they showed me on the picture was about 3 foot long, and it took out a piece of cast iron pipe, and the pipe actually fractured in a large crack and broke off, and it had been that way for a number of days, running a large amount of water. And so it finally surfaced, and so they were able to fix that. And we just have commendable crews that are able to get the equipment there and get it there quick and to get those things fixed. And we really should be grateful for the work that they do. And then, of course, I already gave you the numbers on the airport. I think that's a real success story. I just can't tell you enough of how proud I am of the efforts of many, many people that put their their fingers in that to make that work. And so Ernie's over there right now making his fingers go. And it's important that we have that airport. Lots of times that looks like just a luxury that we could do without, and we could save a lot of money doing it, but ultimately it would cost us a lot of money. And so I appreciate the citizens of Riverton that have worked with us and used the airport. You know, right down to Carl coming tonight and telling us what the civil air service is doing. What a wonderful, you know, when I was a young boy, my dad's best friend was coyote hunting, and we lost his aircraft. And it took 30-some days before we found that aircraft, and that was a hard thing. And I know my dad went out, and I watched that as a young boy, and it's nice to have those people that are willing to volunteer and to help. And back then, I don't know if they do it now, but the pilots that were successful, they would cut the tail off their shirt and put up at the airport when they qualified to be in that group. And so it was kind of a fun thing to be associated with, and to have the memories rotate back. And Kyle threw the numbers up, and the airport was, I think you had 1959 on when the airport was there. And when we had a downturn, when I was a young man, my dad had to go to work at the airport and work as a ticket taker. And he was glad to get out of that job, but it put food on the table for us at that time. And so there's just a lot of history that the airport brings with it, and I really do appreciate the effort that everybody puts in. So with that, that's the more than I needed to report. We do have an executive session on real estate. The chair would entertain a motion to convene into the executive session for the purpose of real estate, consideration of sites selected, or the purchase of real estate in accordance with Wyoming State Statute 16-4-405, little a, and 7, right? Mm-hmm. And so we will,
So moved.
Councilman Bailey has the motion, and Carla, did you second?
Did.
And Councilwoman Borders has the second. So, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. The chair would invite Kristen and Tony to come in the meeting with us, and we'll go do that. Thank you.
They're up on the dais.
Have my mask.
Add a little more body heat away.
Yeah.
The chair would entertain a motion to reconvene into regular session.
So moved.
Second?
Councilwoman Salisbury has the motion and Councilman Bailey has the second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes at 9:28. There is no need for any action, so unless there's an objection, I would suggest we adjourn. Is there anybody opposed? Then we stand adjourned. Thank you.